and which orc detachment fits you best. Let's get stuck in, lads. Today we're here with my friend Eric Forsman, the great war chief himself. Great orc player himself, world-class player. But today he's here to guest. That way we can discuss what the top orc detachments bring in this presentation and conversation. We're going to be discussing all of the orc detachments, the way that they can be favored under different contexts and under circumstances, and just to really bring some vibrant life and diversity back to the orc community with all the new data sheets and detachments that are out, and kind of touch base with the meta as a whole. So Eric, how you doing today, buddy? And can you let us know what you're feeling like today?
Man, I'm doing great. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
It's a beautiful day to be an orc, man. I love coming out of December with a new WAAAGH. Back to the old WAAAGH, the scary WAAAGH. Everyone's afraid. I think that
Right.
that changed quite a bit of game plan for quite a bit of factions or quite a bit of detachments. And dude, I love being green. It's a good day to be green.
It's a good bit. And you actually nailed it by saying it's great that we're feared again, right? Because orcs sometimes get slept on and looked as a mean faction, but we're back. Green is mean. And talking about green is mean, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice, who will allow us to do our paint competition. Thank you to Baron of Dice. So check them out in the description for 5% off, because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to our paint competition winners, because y'all the MVP. So let's just touch base real quick on how the orcs have been doing with their overall win rate in the last 6 weeks, and then kind of get down from there. So Warhorde sitting at a 46% win rate, second most popular detachment currently, but in some people's hearts, Eric, it's still number one in some ways, right? And there's plenty of reasons for that, but let's keep going with this. We got Greenhide at 49% win rate. Now, Greentide always has a small player base, and that's just because it's such a new skew niche. What do you think? How do you feel about Eric? We've never really talked about Greentide, you and I. For you,
So I'm a fan of Green Tide just because of the people I know that play it. Team USA typically has quite a few Green Tide players, is because, as you said, there's not that many people playing it, but the people that do represent Green Tide are typically quite good.
yeah.
And you know, there's not a ton of orc players that are topping events consistently. A lot of orc players I feel like have been around for 10, 20 years, and they're just like, "Hey, I'll come out this one event and go smash it, go yell and have a good time."
That's a good observation. Some of the names you see when they show up, you're like, I remember that dude from last year, you know. So it's a good point. Certain events sometimes bring out the best of certain players. And then we got the new freshness, the Tactical Brigade, the WAAAGH Tactics Brigade, sitting at a 55% win rate in the last 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Most popular detachment, and it's been kind of falling even more and more, the discrepancy between all the detachments in this one. That's why I wanted to do this video today, because I'm still excited to play almost all the other orc detachments a lot of the time. How do you feel about the new Tactical Brigade?
Look, Tactics is a wildly powerful detachment. It is new, it is fresh, it is breathing some life into some units that we had to put back on the shelf a little bit, right? Badrock went away. I was upset. You were upset. Everyone was upset. Tactics was like, well, what if you could build a Badrock at the mall and then bring them to your tournament? And we said, hell yeah, let's go. Tactics is there. The strat suite of Tactics is very, very good. Does not surprise me, right? It's the newest attachment. Why wouldn't people be playing it? Of course.
As for its strength, though, how do you feel about it overall? Do you think it's just hype? Do you think the diversity, people just like to do orders? um how have you been playing it? Have you been enjoying it?
Yeah, no, so Tactics is quite good. There's no debating. The strat suite of Tactics is maybe the most diverse of any detachment. You with access to things like fall back and shoot, you're getting to pump OC when you jump on. You get a lot of juice from that detachment. And so it's like, first of all, orcs have benefited a lot from not only core buffs but also game buffs around them. And what I mean by that is, like, if you say that now redeploying affects infiltrating, Where a year ago, if you redeployed, you could not use the infiltrate. Now you can. Now, if you're using the redeploy enhancement in tactics, you get to redeploy your commandos in a way that is applying pressure. Whereas before redeploy, maybe you would put them out to screen or move block, and then you would redeploy safely. Now you get to redeploy aggressively. Along with that, you get the WAAAGH change, which I know we've talked about. I know the WAAAGH change has been talked about. A lot of the changes has benefited Orks greatly, and then you get this tactics detachment where you not only get very, very toolbox strats like send a unit, get OC, you get you're going to fall back, I'm going to come catch you again. You get a very, very, very important, I am going to fall back, shoot, and charge. Like the 1 CP fallback, shoot, and charge is huge.
It's huge.
It might just be that strat alone.
That strat,
yeah, like
right?
that strat alone might be the one carrying it. So like you have these opportunities to flex which way you're going. The detachment is definitely good. I think where we are is certainly getting a little bit of a identity between the detachments, and that is a good thing, not a
Yeah.
bad thing.
For sure. And even like we were speaking about before, last time you were on, we were talking about the bully boys where they were the hotness, right? And, still speaking of, simply because the WAAAGH changed, bully boys kind of got propped back up again when they were starting to fade away. They still showed out recently in the last 6 weeks with some X and ones and X and O performances. They do have a 42% win rate. I think it's because a lot of people like to YOLO with bully boys, where they just bring all the beef and all the elite hard hitting units and they just call WAAAGH twice and hope they win. And that's fine. That's fine. But it's just funny how it kind of keeps consistently changing, but it does have identity. And the Tactics Brigade alongside the Horde Brigade, which are the two most popular detachments, really allow for player expression and diversity of your collection. So those are the two we're going to focus on today, because we also have Dread Mob, where Dread Mob has really swinging results simply because you can meme so crazy. You can bring, I brought a Stampa and a Gargantuan Squig off last game I played at the same time, Dread Mob. It's like, whatever. You can just go crazy in that detachment, or you can just bring Daka mobs, really smart, strategic firepower, or mass OC battle line grots. So it's a pretty crazy detachment, but swinging nonetheless. People have fun with it. And then we have the Hunt Cult of Speed. They're sitting at less than a 39% win rate. For the most part, they're not something we're going to look into today and speak about at all. But you specifically, being a member of Team America, between these detachments and when you look at Orks, what are you really looking for from the team's perspective?
Okay, so first of all, the Hunt the Hunt and Cult of Speed will get their day. Okay, the Orc data sheets are good. Those boys will get it. Look,
They will.
They have good rules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we don't have the exact data sheets and the points yet, but those boys will have their day. Okay, so you boys out there waiting patiently, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
What? Okay, so to answer your question, what do I look for? Orcs is very special. Where right now, Orcs as a faction is able to flex very tremendously one way or another. And what I mean by that is there are not a ton of detachments that can go very heavy melee pressure or very intense shooting. Most factions are currently able to skew one way or the other, not both. Orcs can very effectively do both. The tactics orcs just tank busta flash gets, build a Badrock shooting. It's like when you get to pop out and shoot at a +1, and then suddenly they're shooting you back, and you are double modifier and -1 to hit and cover, and it costs you nothing. That is very, very, very effective. Okay, so being able to flex both directions is quite good. I personally am, and I have been since day one. I think we talked about this a minute ago. Since day one, I am a huge proponent of Warhorde. I always have been. I always will be. maybe not always will be, but I have been this entire edition. I think Warhorde is exceptional. I think Tactics is quite good, and it is very fresh, and it is interesting to see a lot of people. We see factions with heavy play rates like Guard and Marines run out with heavy vehicle spam and hull heavy lists and run into Orc players, and Orc players say, "Oh yeah, I got some tank busters with a sag," and they go, "Yeah, sure, that's cute. Orc shooting's not good." And then that Orc shooting picks up everything they have real quick and goes, "Oh, I think people are learning how potent that Orc shooting can be when pointed at the right targets." So I think Orc shooting has its place, but I think, when you're looking in teams, you have to know what you're going for. I think you can skew tactics to be very anti-infantry or anti-hull, and Warhorde is also very similar. You have the option of which way you skewing.
I see. And I'm glad you did. I still want to go back to the fact that you corrected the hunt and cult of speed. They do have good rules. Just the fact that we're in, Nexus mess things up for cult of speed a bit, and then squigs cost too much for the hunt. But it's funny how really all our detachments have quite good stratagems and such. And because we're going to be speaking of these detachments, I actually want to just pull up the detachment rules, the stratagems real quick for like Warhorde and such. And I wanted to ask you specifically, how do you feel the Orcs do, or Warhorde specifically, as you're looking into the meta as a whole? We have Guard coming up, we have the new Eldar coming up. People are kind of worrisome, and they know sometimes shooting is just like the more direct answer because I just got to point and go. I don't have to worry about failing charges and kind of getting overwatched and such so easily, so significantly. Even though, of course, you can still get overwatched nonetheless. I'm just saying that Orc players still have this kind of like, well, why would I still favor Warhorde? And what way does it really contend other than being more difficult than tactics? Because like you said, it costs nothing to get orders.
So everyone listening needs to understand that I am very biased. I just am. I think you hit a point where life is hard as a combat player until you hit a point where you understand how combat works, and then suddenly life becomes much harder for your opponent. So if you love playing combat and you keep getting bodied, keep practicing, keep getting coaching services, keep playing events, keep going to RTTs and GTs. You will get there and you will become a menace for your opponent. I promise that will happen. Because of that, I am very biased, and I think that Warhorde provides an additional level of potency that any gun faction does not. What I mean by that is we do not play chess. We play a game with dice. Okay. So even if you leave yourself, even if you leave yourself that I have 10 snaggas and a beast boss charging into a rhino, it should kill it. Versus, oh, I have 10 tank busts or 6 tank bustas and a sag shooting into a rhino, it should kill it. The difference is if you're a shooting army, if you're playing tactics and you fail to kill your dice roll against you, that rhino's still on the objective and you are still in or out just outside of your deployment zone. Whereas if you're Warhorde or you're a combat based army and now you have failed to kill, you are now surrounding that rhino, making it impossible to fall out or to disembark, making it so that they have to take a desperate to fall back, and also putting more OC on that objective than they can deal with. You're finding your faction, your units in a more favorable position than you would be if you were a shooting army.
In
So
short, what you're saying is, sorry, so excuse me. You're saying you're failing forward regardless if you're failing. The chance of failing always happens in a dice game. But the fact that with melee armies, you're always making forward progress because at least you're occupying table space, you're flipping primary, you're interacting in the opponents, and not just the way that you kill them, but in the way that you're limiting their options now. If I simply tag your vehicle, like you said, if I surround you and I don't kill you with, let's say, a 10-man unit of Storm Boys, You can't disembark anything from that nor fall back safely if you fail battle shock. Those are the factors, like you said, melee. Swinging 10-man unit of orc boys or 20-man mobs, swinging them into other units that you didn't initially charge is a huge factor as well when playing melee armies.
Yeah, you can do multiple things. For instance, let's say we're playing guard and we want to shoot a Torox. We could shoot and fail to kill, or if we're charging, we could charge it, surround it, so it has to desperate. Then we could also tag an additional Torox or unit so that now that one can't advance or has to fall back and shoot. This one just simply can't. You're achieving more in your failures. Your failure rate is not changed, but where you are, your positioning in the process is in a far better spot. So if I have a choice, if I say, hey, I'm going into this faction, do you want to play the melee version or the shooting version? I'm taking the melee version first and seeing if I can make it work, period.
Yeah, and you mentioned your bias, but I think I have somewhat that same bias as well. When it was between Warhorde and the Tactics Brigade when it first came out, and people were talking about how many points of DACA would you put in your list. I'm someone that doesn't try to spam too much DACA because I love the melee aspect. And I think org players need to understand that that's something that sticks with us forever because our wall rule is with us forever. What we always do is trade bodies for points, and points can be expressed not only in simply primary, but where you're standing. Like Eric said, making that charge into that Torox allowed me to maybe get behind enemy lines, maybe allowed me to get a gauge on all fronts. There's a bunch of different things that I've now doesn't allow that enemy to use that vehicle to do a secondary themselves that they were looking to do. This is what they mean, and this is why when you're sticking to the meat and potatoes of what orcs do, it's better for you in the long run, which is why if you're starting orcs, if you're intermediate, if you're even someone coming back and you've picked up on the Tactics Brigade, just know Warhorde still does what orcs do, in to some regards, still best. And let's look at the rules, Eric, if you don't mind, unless there's something else you
I'd
want to
love
mention.
to. No, I'd love to.
Can
Yeah,
you
let's
mention
go.
some strats that you really love here? Because I'm just going to start off. I'd like to go first. I've always loved that we have access to something like Orcs is never beaten. When you're looking at something like World Eaters, for example, where you're just like, well, this matchup becomes almost passive for me because I get double trades out of everything I'm doing here. You're constantly losing things. I have more stuff than you with something like Fight on Death. Do you want to extrapolate on any of the rules or stratagems that you really appreciate in this detachment?
God, man, every strat here is so powerful. Let me
I
just say,
know.
Orcs is never beaten is the number one stratagem that people will utilize and will change the makeup of the game. As you just said, if someone is playing a melee army into you, they have to worry about you saying, well, I get to interrupt here and fight on death here. So if your orc player has 4 CP when you go to make your big push, you are behind. I don't care who you are. It is a bad day in the office for you because sus one in combat happens, period. It does not matter if you charge, they charge, your mama charges, you are getting sustained. So the damage output is much higher.
And you're not rolling for it. Sorry, but
Yes.
right?
No,
There
that's
are
the biggest one, right? That's why Orcs, Eldar, like that's why Yanari and Orcs is the one because like dude, you're getting this is happening. It is not a I happen to roll. This is when you fight me, I'm fighting you back, period. It is over.
Do you think that's particularly important in this new meta? Like when people are so focused on, tank busters and tactics. Let's say you've seen a mirror matchup, or if you go into the new Eldar, or if you go into the versions of World Eaters that everybody kind of gatekeeps on their way up through the 5-round defender and RTT. How important do you think that is? Like how much you feel it? How much you care?
Listen, all of the rules that you have are only as impactful as you are as a player able to leverage them.
Ooh.
Me, I will break you off with that 2 CP fight on death.
Exactly.
I will break you off with that. And for everybody playing Warhorde and being a Warhorde enthusiast and saying it's not working, it will. It will work. It can and it does and it should. You can make Warhorde work. It takes that time. It takes that moment. A lot of times you're not fighting with your faction, you're beating the person across the table. And Warhorde has 100% the tools to be able to do so, and the randomness to be able to break someone's face open with a strat like
Oh
Kareem.
yeah, Kareem, dude.
Green's my favorite. Green's my absolute favorite because when I play Warhorde, I tend to play something like a wagon and 4 trucks or 6 trucks. I play something heavy vehicle, heavy transport, so that I look at my opponent and pregame. I never gotcha anybody ever. I tell everybody this is what I have, this is what it does, this is how it works. And Kareem is one of those that nobody plans for, and you can't. So you just say, look, I have this Kareem, and it may not happen, but if it does, it's going to win the game. And your opponent can be the best player in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've played some of the best players, if not the best players in the world. I have played against them. When you get to Kareem, when you roll a 6 and explode, and suddenly they have planned for everything ever, and suddenly your truck gets to drive over their unit surrounding you and
It's so
into
outrageous.
it. Yeah. You're like, well, guess what? Suddenly I'm going to score this primary on your home, and then I'm going to take your entire deployment zone. It is the most backbreaking strat maybe in 40K.
I think it might be. It's just so
Is
random.
is Kareem the most back,
Uh,
especially when you play good players who are very tight, who plan for every single thing you can do, and they're pre-measuring, and they know everywhere you can go, and they've screened, and they've done this and that, and then suddenly they pop something and you Kareem. Yeah, it's my
mhm.
I never count on a Kareem, but it is one that I know when and if it hits, it's game.
Yeah.
We're talking 9-9. It's 9-9 time. I'm putting the
It's
big
so
green
crazy.
bicep over the throat, and then
Yeah.
I'm just put shh, go to sleep.
It's so silly. It's so silly because it's true, dude. Anecdotal experience as well. It's crazy how funny his Kareen is, and
Mm-hmm.
it can be so backbreaking. Of course,
Oh
we
yeah.
have Art as Nails, which because Squigs and such aren't so potent anymore. People don't love it. The fact that they took it from the Gargantuan Squigoth will for always and forever bother me. Shout out to the chat. I'm sure you guys can agree with that if you have a Gargantuan Squigoth. And then how about Here We Go? How often do you find yourself using Here We Go? I love them for Gaz. Like just saying, when I'm running Gaz a lot in my War Hordes, I love them for when it's Gaz time. Here We Go on the wall. How much do you love the Here We Go strap?
So the best part about Warhorde to me is that you as a player gets to decide when what you're doing breaks someone over. So like Marines have a lot of good detachments, but the highest end players I've found love to play Gladius the most because those stratagems are very expressive of player skill. Here We Go is one where if you stick one unit out and they're going to target that unit, maybe you spend Here We Go and see if they live, or maybe you have sent units all over the table, and when your opponent commits or undercommits or overcommits, you can use Here We Go to punish their bad decisions. It is very much a player versus player stratagem. Here We Go, I think, is the best on paper, but the hardest to actually leverage of these strats.
Oh, that's interesting because a lot of people overlook it, and I think a lot of people actually misuse this simply because they forget that it starts in the beginning at the movement phase. A lot of the time, they're considering it for like their units that are disembarking from a transport, and they can't do it. So I
Mhm.
think for that reason, because it's not linear like that, they kind of simply seem to overlook it.
So it's just where are we going, right? So
Mhm.
it's like your opponent gets to look and say, okay, this is what I'm defending, this is what I'm defending, this is what I'm defending, and then you get to say when they're pre-measuring, they're like, okay, you have to decide how aggressive you're going to be attacking orcs because you really want to put the pressure onto orcs and make them mess up. So good players want to assault orcs and say,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to pop a couple boats, I'm going to pop a couple transports, and you're going to be stuck there. And now they're going to pre-measure and they're going to go, all right, well, this is a 13 on 3d6. I'm okay with that risk. Or they're going to say, this is an 11 on 3d6. And you say, well, remember, I have, here we go. So it may be an 11 now, but it might be a 7. And now they start going, okay. Like, here we go is one where the strength of that stratagem is not always using it, but it's sometimes saying, I could use this, and your opponent either gets closer or further away because of it. I am a huge proponent of the best gotcha in 40K is not a gotcha your opponent didn't know about, but it's where you expose that gotcha to an opponent, and now their decisions are that much harder.
Yeah, and you're just being honest. You're just letting them know I can do this. It's just an option on the
100%.
table.
You're not.
Movement wins games too. That's the
Yes.
thing. They have to regard a movement and what you're capable of getting off on that. Especially for how orcs play, which most of our stuff has more OC and bodies than whoever we're getting off with these strats as well. So they have to take it into consideration. Not everybody likes to be tagged in combat with us. And movements wins games. So I do like it a lot too. And it's made a big difference for games and for me. And of course, Unbridled Carnage. This became my favorite when there was the life of the Catans everywhere. We had to use our Snagger boys to chew through them, and every Necron player was like, "What'd you just do?" And I'm like, "You just don't exist anymore." Yeah, sorry. And this is still viable because demons, right? So how demons are pretty prevalent right now in the meta. You can pretty much use this with Snaggas into greater demons in the
It's a
similar
lot
sense.
too. I mean, you can also hit a 20-man.
Oh yeah, of course.
Charge 3 units, and now suddenly you're it's not into one. This is your unit. It's crit 5. So yeah, there's a lot of benefit. There's a lot of benefit here.
Yeah, for sure. And with that being said, I want to now look at the Tactics Brigade in regards to this and what we're looking at as a meta, and then we'll kind of consolidate everything when we speak of near the end out of our overall ideas for how the orcs are going to be going into the new opponents in this game. So I didn't ask you this before because we haven't got to discuss this detachment. How do you feel about the enhancements in this detachment? Which ones do you like? Which one are you leaving at home?
Okay, so the detachments or the enhancements here are, we have one auto take, which is the mech captain. That's the build a Badrock. We all know that. Past that, we are looking.
Most of the time, people will end up taking Mork's Cunning for the most part because the redeploy.
So yeah, those things are a little bit extra, right? To me, when you have that Mork's Cunning, you have the God Boomer. These are, I have extra points. I'm tossing them in.
Yeah.
For me personally, I have not built in the redeploy or the boomer.
Okay.
I think they're fine.
No, dude, you're a squad leader, bro. Come on, dude, tell me about that. Squad leader.
Listen, I don't mess with the squad leader at all.
Okay.
I know people do, and if you do and you find it successful, power to you.
Yeah.
Right? Power to you. That's me personally. I don't mess with it. I think, you know what? If this detachment came out and they had not changed the WAAAGH, I would run squad leader 1,000% of the time.
Oh, okay, I get it. That's a good point of view right there.
Where we are now with the WAAAGH change, I don't find it necessary.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna do it, just lean all the way in. Bring more than one unit of commandos. Bring that pressure. Just make sure you got enough stuff to probably back.
Yeah, and the redeploy, go.
Yeah,
make sure
exactly.
that if people are going second, or if you're going second, you're able to punish them for doing the thing. Like, yeah, of course, you can definitely leverage that. That is not something that is bad. It is something I don't like, and there is a difference. It is not a bad enhancement by any means in the world.
No, none at all. And then we move on to the stratagems here. Or how about this? Storm Boys' battle line. What's up with that, dude? This is something people maybe expected for like Cult of Speed. I was quite surprised by this. What about you? Would you ever take advantage of this? Let's say secret mission or 10-man units or you know, I've never seen anybody bring like 5 units of 5 Storm Boys. So what's up with you with
5
with
units,
them?
5 no, but 4 or 5 I have.
Okay, okay.
I have seen people play with it. We have seen some people experiment into the world of I am taking 10 or 0 Gretchen, which breaks. Ugh, that hurts me tremendously.
I'll
But
never not take 10 Gretchen. What's up? Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you
Mhm,
there. Listen,
mhm.
I'm with you. But we have to try, right? And if an orc is
Yes.
willing to try, that's good, right? Play a few games, see how it feels for you as a player, and if you're able to leverage that. When you're able to uppy downy later on, when your CP may not be as useful, that's very good.
Yeah.
Also, being able to jam in and then say, guess what? Your Rhino killed nobody. Now I'm OC 10. It's very good. Um, the Storm Boys are super good here. It's how many do you need? I don't know yet. I don't know.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. I keep going back and forth. I find it appealing when people randomly bring a 10-man unit. I just don't keep them on my list. But I think just the options is pretty interesting. I find it fun. Still to explore though. 15 seems good. 15 seems good.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I've seen anywhere from 0 to 50.
yeah. Shout out to whoever was taking 50.
Look, I mean, if you want to try it and
Mhm.
like if you're sending and you're screening super hard and you're playing like all shooting orcs and you're playing on an open map like GW or UKTC and you're very much a positional player where you're using those storm boys to like bridgehead is a big problem. And if you're able to send those storm boys to kind of tag a couple, not let them jump up in the air, but then also screen the ones that are coming down, you
Mhm.
only need a few turns of that before they're behind.
Yep.
So if you are running, send. Like, show me results. I want to see it.
And the fact that that's even an option is what makes that so fun. Because you're
It
right,
is.
we have yet
Yeah.
to see it. People are just disregarding 1 10-mans, but you know sometimes one is none. So maybe the issue is people only bring a 1 10-man. Maybe you're on. We need to bring more than one. Maybe we need 3, 4. Let's go. Start advancing
I
charging all game,
mean,
baby.
if
Advancing
you
charging
have
all game.
3 units, you're essentially telling your opponent you don't get to deep strike anywhere that I don't want you to.
That's
That's pretty powerful,
yeah
right?
for
I
sure.
mean, the
And
orcs are controlling the table.
you keep bringing up also something that's ours. You keep bringing up that's ours, and I like that. I really appreciate this strat. And every game, the whole game, I'm looking at what way I can exploit this strat, where it's like, when can I get just one more body on that objective than you and just ruin your whole primary turn right here. Because I really appreciate this strat. What is your experience with it? Because you've mentioned it several times already.
I mean, it's the command phase.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Any command phase.
yeah,
Anything.
that's both, right? Like the fact
Hmm.
that you can press a button and say in your command phase you don't score it, or in my command phase I do.
It's great. Yeah. I always look to get this going
Like
on. Mhm.
that's ours is one that tactics is very much the opposite side of the coin, where Warhorde is the
Yeah.
melee player. Tactics is the shooting player. Like what I mean by that is like if you're playing where you are trying to leverage these benefits because you are a good player of the game, that's ours is one where if you're developing as a player, you'll look back to in the shower and you'll be like, "Oh, I could have. That's ours." You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then like
for sure.
that's you'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, I could have
Uh,
won. I could have done it." That's ours is one where being able to apply that pressure, or
mhm.
your opponent licks us or whatever stupid Eldar thing they're sending over your way, and you get to say, all right, cool, but now if you charge me, my last 3 Gretchen are going to be OC9.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. You tell your
whoopsies.
I tell my enemy about it, and then they're just kind of like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool." And then when the game's going off and they're about to start getting ready for their turn, I'm like, "Remember, I can +1 OC here. Just remember." And they're like, okay,
Yeah,
okay."
yeah.
Not like
That
you were
like
speaking about with Here We Go, right? It's one of those things where they just know, and then they start bundling everything together on the objective, and it allows you to do the orc thing where you start touching more stuff now because now they're scared to get their primary flipped because 3 Gretchen is 9 OC. Their transport plus a couple dudes can't hold it anymore. They start piling up and getting grouped up. So yeah, it's one of those things like you said. Sometimes telling them to make how you can make the mistake. I want to give a shout out to Andrew Stone for being a new channel member. Whoa, Andrew Stone, and shout out to the chat. So if any of you guys like the video, give a like, and shout out to Eric. So, how do you feel about this Crunch and Descent? Huh? It was always hyped up before. How do you like to pretend to be an assault intercessor?
Not listen. I'm just not spending it.
Yeah.
I'm just not doing it. If you do, it's there, and right, like nothing wrong with a couple extra mortals sprinkled in. I am a big fan of like finishing the deal, especially shooting armies, right? Shooting armies really, really want an army that can pick up the spare. Crunch and Descent on top of grenades, on top of a charge, is one where now you can charge in, you can pop that unit. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Nope.
I've used it. I've seen it used. It's more of a backup plan than a plan.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one.
But nice to have a backup plan.
Which is how I feel with the stratagems as a whole. A lot of the time, the stratagems aren't something you're looking every single turn to pop. It's more like, oh, if I get a chance to do this, I'm going to do this. Like, for example, on to the next. I haven't had a bunch of chances to have too many successful onto the next, but the fact that the enemy knows I can do it makes them behave differently. And that's the factor here sometimes.
Yeah, that's one again where it's if you, then I. Right.
Yeah, if you do this, then I get to choose.
No, my experience with that is a lot of people going, do it. Right? Like, cool, give me the CP. Like, fine. Take your move. I accept. When I'm playing against tactics and they're like, oh, I can on to the next. Anytime you want, go for it. But to be fair, if you are charging them, a lot of times if they're if they're charging you and they're not killing you, it's kind of tough. That's kind of like more of a jailing tactics. Like I think that fits into a little bit of the commando plan, because like you're running, charging in, something fell back, you make a normal move, you jail them further. I think the jailing commando plan is only more of an afterthought because you have other factions like NIDS and GSC that do it better.
Yeah.
And like, dude, they do it for someone. The commandos are expensive still. So like,
Yeah.
I still see, tactics is so good at murdering you. They're not really usually open to spending a bunch of points going, well, maybe I can do all these cool fancy tricks.
Shout out to the fact, yeah, I know. Shout out to the fact that one, you can do a bomb squig if you do this, and then two, they were at least keeping it in mind that you were trying to be cunning and not just crump people's heads off. It did end up kind of becoming that right now, but there are options here for those moments where you want to be extra cunning, which only makes it even better. Detachment makes you feel better, because for those moments that it can pop off, it's like cool. And then of course we have Fight Propa. I was super happy that we had this because it was also lethals. Like you could choose lethals as well. It wasn't just pop versus thing.
Yeah.
You end up choosing lethal, not too often, but I mean, I like that I have that chance, right? It's just,
yeah, options are good, of course.
Feels great. I love that. Mounted, just what do you think about mounted units in this detachment? Have you ever expressed them, seen them expressed personally yet? Mounted units in this detachment.
Listen, shout out to Big Hogs, but like I got 18 of them painted in the basement, but I haven't put them on the table this edition yet.
Yeah, so. Come on, dude, bring them back. No.
Listen, I would love to.
Point changes. Let's go. It's an AP.
They maybe
Oh my god.
it could be
You know.
something.
Hey, give him back +1 to hit, dude. You know that was a thing. +1 to hit.
That
You
was a
know.
big thing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things. Are you gonna
Mhm.
let him be up to 8 and not be +1 anymore? Like, let's take the
Uh,
modifier from the. There's a lot of. Let's not talk about Squeaks.
you're
Real
you're about to
11th,
get lost.
hey, 11th edition Squeak Hogs. Let's holla. Come
Shout
on,
out to
they'll be
mounted
there. Yeah,
units. Shout out
yeah,
to
they'll be
mounted
there.
units.
Yeah,
And then we have tactical retreat.
best.
Uh,
I mean, the best strat in the detachment.
yeah, I absolutely love the fact that we have this strat.
It wouldn't work without it.
What do you mean by that?
The detachment without tactical retreat just simply would not function.
You want to elaborate? Go ahead.
Okay, so what I mean by that is when you have a detachment that really doesn't have a million buffs to shooting or a million buffs to punching, you have buffs to both when you want to deliver them, but you don't have both. And then suddenly you are able to be shut down. So if you're, playing anybody and that you have these brand new buff tank bustas and someone sends in 10 guardsmen and just touches you and now you're out of commission for
Mhm.
how many turns?
Yeah.
Tactical retreat allows you to continue using your units that either you misplayed or your opponent made a brilliant play on, or you were able to aggressively overplay, saying I can lean on tactical retreat to make sure I can still activate afterwards.
Mhm.
And it's not only one, it's both. It's shoot and charge. It's not like
Yes.
you can run
Obnoxious.
out. Yeah, tactical retreat. If tactical retreat, I would say if tactical retreat did not exist and it was a bunk ass strat, this detachment's win rate would drop 10% overnight.
Oh, and
Period.
really, that's a great observation. You expressed that really well because I agree. Let's say if someone punches it's a melee, matchup. They punch your truck, chunk out of commission. They consolidate into your tank busters. What are you doing now? Can't
Yeah.
fall back. Can't do nothing anymore. Boop. It's over.
No, now
Uh,
your
you
250 point unit, because tactics units are very expensive. Yeah.
and a unit that
Now,
leans on them. Oh, sorry. Were you keep going?
no, I'm saying the same thing you are,
Yeah,
man.
the unit that leans on it, for example, is Zod. Someone was bringing up Zod in the chat. Zod, for example, is someone like you said that they can overexpress on lean on it, where you push them so up the field that you're like that dumb little unit that's not on the other side of the field on the wall. If I have 3 Grots and Zod still alive, I still have 11 OC. If I have the ability to also give myself +1 OC, and I can fall back and charge that unit as well, and spread that little bit of primary all over the table. So yeah, tactical retreat allows you to, whether you're using it in a defensive matter, or in a forward momentum matter, this stratagem ends up continuing the momentum with this detachment in a way that it doesn't allow the enemy to just shut you down in ways that you might shut down the opposition, whether it's because you're going to overwatch them if they're a melee army, or if you're going to start shooting at them and charge them because they're a shooting army and you're going to keep them, holding them in place. So yeah, that's a great point. And I have to agree, this is the best stratagem in this detachment, and it does make it really work. But what about that sneaky? Because you just said that sneaky. You just want to crump everything. What about this? This is the one that it's like, in theory, I can really do all this, and then you just kind of don't end up really doing it that often.
No, I mean, look, if
Mhm.
you're taking multiple Storm Boys, which
Uh-huh.
I think one of the issues that we've seen is like when this detachment was first released, at least where I am, we kind of pressed the offense. So we were like 4 SAGs or 3 SAGs, 3 War Boss, 3 Breaka, 3 Tank Busta. Send. Zogger, like build a Badrock and 10 flash kits.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just sending damage hard.
Yes, absolutely. You can
As
get. Yeah, keep going.
no. As you progress and as you play more, you find you tilt the needle to define what you want between murder and score. And every detachment slash faction slash list lands in a place where it is heavier score, heavier murder. And I think Dead Sneaky is a very, very good way for you to take very few scoring and stretch them out. So if you are planning ahead, and if you are like balancing your budget of CP for dead sneaky, you can make it work like phenomenal wonders for you. And some people say, look, I'd rather not spend the CP or save it. I'd rather just take an extra unit of Storm Boys. This detachment's not figured out yet, and the meta isn't resolved. So we don't really know what the best is, but like dead sneaky is very important for your game plan. I don't care who you are. You're taking some, like most lists are taking at the very bare minimum 1 unit of Storm Boys, period. So
period. I'd say 2.
Period.
I'd really stretch that to 2, but yes, bare minimum.
I am the trash man.
Yeah, trash,
I love taking trash.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know how many. I don't know.
Can you elaborate on that? Because this is something that I've been trying to, talk to people about as well, where they're like, man, I got 8 characters on my list. I got everything killing in 3 sets. What am I doing? And I'm like, just remember, having trash too, if you don't own all those models of ultra killing packages, having just a lot of stuff is very important to org players. Why do you like trash so much? I talk about it, but why do you like trash so much?
So let me talk about it from an orc perspective.
Yes, exactly.
Especially tactics. One of the best ways for me to combat tactics, and I will say, because currently I am like sitting back seat watching watching other boys play orcs on USA, because we have such an amount of orc players between like Sipe and Michael Mann and Troller, like that we're letting run. I've been watching them do their thing. But with tactics especially, you end up with some heavy units that are pretty expensive, that can kill a lot. But what happens when they have to kill a little? What happens when your unit of Break It Boys and a War Boss has to come out, because it's all you have available to kill a unit of scouts? And now they're like spending their points on 1/3 of the amount.
Yeah.
So like, what I want with trash is to find the balance between what I need to put myself in a good board state winning position, and what I need to score as many points as I need to win this game. So for orcs, I'm in love with Gretchen. I love rats. I love Gretchen so much. Like I am like pretty much auto loading like 30 Gretchen and 3 Runt Herd into every list, maybe 22. I am a huge fan because they do everything I want them to. They can screen, they can score, they can run out on objectives, they can tag, like they can run to the side and make sure that I can actually fight armies that have fight first. So like it's funny against armies that like deep strike with no indirect. All the Gretchen are behind me, and the armies that are like very pressure and fights first, all the Gretchen are in front of me. I love Gretchen so much. Trash will absolutely win you the round if you know how to use them. And in tactical, the best trash just happens to be Storm Boys. Period.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And I did like how you said, what if you just have a War Boss and a Breaker Boy unit, a Breaker Boy unit. What I was saying it as, you kind of run out of activations, units that you can actually activate. Typically, orcs, we want to take advantage of that in the enemy. We want them to run out of activations. We want them to spend their couple las cannons on popping the truck and not able to kill the stuff in the truck, because they don't have enough activations and shooting in that lane to actually kill us. And vice versa, we don't want to have not enough activations to take out something like Tyranids, where they can throw out a bunch of little units and kind of play the game and kind of draw you out in ways. So yeah, there is a boundary there. There is a line there that orc players got to realize, that's why we love trash so much, is we want the enemy for them to run out of their elite activations, for us to have overwhelming activations. And that's why you like stuff like Grots, or in this, in tactics, it'd be Storm Boys. In War Horde, I like Grots.
Love Grotz. Yep. Gretchen is my dudes all
Now,
day.
since we spoke about each of the two, what I would talk the top contending detachments, doesn't mean the other detachments aren't playable by any means. I absolutely love them. Plenty of coverage on them as well. Um, Here's a couple things that I kind of want to, be concise with and conclude with. Is run what you love. I think both of us are trying to put off here is you can tell that we have a lot of passion and interest in both detachments and even detachments that are kind of behind that. Yet we, favor what we prefer, and we still have a diverse understanding and why we play one or the other. So based off your collection and what you guys are actually running, play what you actually like and enjoy. Because Eric obviously knows how much he appreciates his tactical brigade. But my boy's running Warhorde just about all day, every day, dude. All day, every day.
Oh yeah.
Since Index Hammer. And this is something I was making fun of, not making fun of, but explaining about Warhorde was that these have been the rules since like dang 8th edition, where it's like you just get sustained hits, you
Yep.
know?
Day one.
Yeah, this has been just the orc rules, just straight up is here you go is what is equivalent to sustain 1 on 6s for punching. Go get stuck in, figure it out. They've had this rule kind of, and it was the backbone 8th, it was the backbone 9th when we lost the shooting and that kill rigs came into play and people were running goffs, and then we started index with Warhorde. It's just the continuum. So if you're good at this and you get understand and refine Warhorde, keep playing it. You'll never really get left behind. Tactics is just appealing to those DACA gets that have the other side of their collections and maybe couldn't express it in something like Dread Mob because it was too skewed, right? So one thing is do not chase a build, right? We're here for the long run, not for the short run. Warhammer is really time and extensive. And like Eric's saying, is he has many hours and games of perfecting understanding combat alone. So that's something you have to understand is orcs are an army that have a high ceiling and a low floor. Orcs, they can go really far. Like Eric said, there's some players that they just come out once in a while and they just smash an event and then they go back into hibernation, and some people are just really just trying to figure them out and taking us 2 stompas to an event and just losing all their games, right? So practice the basics, prioritize scoring, really taking up board space, and understanding flipping objectives and utilizing the fact that you have more activations than most armies that you can go into. And then perspective is king. Understanding what's your meta, what you're possibly going to fake is more important than understanding that, for example, Deathwatch it maybe is the best army in all of 40K between all the competitive players, but you probably will never see a Deathwatch player at your local RTT possibly, right? It's just you, and that happens, but just understand that and don't try to keep changing your list to counter everything that you hear about in the meta. Just understand what's in your real life game and your real life experience and just play what you're good at and you initiate your game plan and what you want to set up. With that being said, if you don't mind, I read this chat real quick. We got WAPO with the 15-month super chat, 15K coming up. Top work. Whoa! Thank you, Wapo, for the super support. There you go, Eric, with the double bicep. Looking swole too, dude. Since I seen you last, dude. Since you last crumb free,
Yep.
dude.
I'll see you soon, man.
Yeah,
I'll
since you
see you
last you
soon.
knocked my teeth out last time, dude. That was funny. And then we
Hey,
got 5 WAAAGH gifted memberships from Wapo. Thank you for the love, man. Thank you for
you're
the
the man,
support.
Wapo.
Whoa, thank you, man. You really
You're
are
the man.
you really are the man. So what do you think about orcs as in those 2 top detachments? Why would someone play Warhorde? And if you can conclude with why would someone play Warhorde and why would someone play Tactics Brigade? Let's just say that they don't have, the perfect Dread Mob, the perfect The Hunt, the perfect Bully Boys, and they're trying to pick, hey man, I don't know which way to build out my army, or I have an old collection. How would you kind of give them the summary, the first level of
Or-
tips before you started coaching them on why they would pick it?
Orcs are hard, man.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're an orc player, they have made orcs, like you said, second bullet point, high floor, like high ceiling, low floor. Orc shooting is inconsistent but amazingly potent. Orc melee is wild, but melee is harder to establish and harder to play. If you are an orc player, play the damn thing. Talk to coaches. Talk to my man here. Talk to people around you. Use the Discord and ask, what can I do to be better? That is the most important thing. Like, the struggle is real for everybody. You always want to be a better player. And orc players, guard players, orc and guard is like the two factions that have very low floor and high ceiling. Orcs is the melee version of guard, essentially, right? Like super devoted players, devoted fan base. We get amazing YouTube channels like this and
Shout out to Morty and Glory.
content creators like this making it happen for the players. Orcs are amazing. Reach out to people. Okay. I know lots of orc players offer some coaching services. You can talk on the Discord here and ask for some help. Go out, play your game, ask for some help. Because you can get better. I know right now where I am, there's not a team, there's not an 8-man team or probably even a 5-man team that I would not take orcs to, period. As a coach, as a player, as a pairings, and as someone involved in the team, I don't care where I am, but if I'm creating a composition of the strongest armies, orcs is one of them if I have a player. So be that person for your community. They deserve you. You deserve to go out and crush them and crump some faces, man. You can do the thing.
No, that's actually a truth, dude. How I started Warhammer was that exact thing you just said. Is every person in my community had quit orcs, and I was showing interest, so people actually gave me some of their old orc collections. Like the battle wagon I got, first battle wagon I got was the first Gaz I got, the first 20 boys I got. Were actually given to me by just people leaving them at the game store. Like, hey, dude, someone left you orcs because they had them left over and they knew you were gonna play orcs, and they wanted to get crumped by you, or they wanted to crump
that.
you.
Yeah,
that's the true story. Anybody, I have the receipts, and so it's like people really do want orc players to be out there. So being just a specialist is what Eric's trying to say. Is don't try to specialize in either of these detachments, any of the detachments. Specialize in being the orc player that you want to be, and just express that, and it'll get you further than chasing a detachment, chasing a list, chasing a data sheet.
You like, because you know, if one or the other is better, one or the other, like, things are going to get nerfed, things are going to get buffed. Your points are going to go up, your points are going to go down. I know for me, I've always been more interested in melee orcs than shooting orcs. So I don't own as many shooting orcs. But even when people said orcs are not good, quote unquote, I still crumped a few faces out there, boys. And if you live near me, you know what I'm talking about. Even when people said orcs were bad, I was sending it. So orcs are always a faction that is underutilized, underplayed. Do the thing. Ask for some help. If it's not working, it will work. It will work. Orcs are one. I would say there's not a ton of factions that have the diversity and the strength top to bottom and the ability to flex your player ability as orcs. So if you are an orc player, you are super, super fortunate right now. Super fortunate. So we should all be super happy. We talked about how we wanted a little change to happen when the codex came out and the game changed around us, and we simply got better in the meantime. I think orcs are probably one of the very best factions, period, right now.
I'm gonna say green is best because the fact that we have so many detachments that are sick, to me, it just feels like we're the best. But of course, I'm biased, which we've raised several biased around here.
Yeah, you're
Let's
super
get it. I don't
biased.
mind at all.
Marines have a lot too, Doc. Marines have a lot of detachments.
They
got a lot of love.
They do, but they're the poster boys, so it's wild that we're we're not the poster boys.
Marines or orcs are quite good, man. I love
the background villains shouldn't be as awesome as the main characters. Also, otherwise, that's technically according to their point of view.
Villains?
To their point of view, they are. I think we're the good guys, and I actually talked about doing a video on this. Our orcs actually the good guys of 40K, and it was just I didn't do it, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But in the poster boy perspective, we are the bad guys. From the poster boys' point of view, they see us that way. And the fact that that's who you got to bring up to contest with our greatness just shows that
I
green is best, you know. And there's a couple green boys that are, you know, a couple of them gets their green too. You know,
They
they
tried.
fit
They
in. They
tried.
fit in. So yeah, I think you nailed it, dude. That just worry about being an orc specialist. Just favor what you already have. If you got more melee, stick to Warhorde. It's just as potent and effective into the meta as the Tactics Brigade for the most part. And if you got the DACA, you know, go ahead and lean into that. We all know that tank
Oh,
busters could get
and
nerfed,
and
but
one
you don't
last
end
one.
up
I got
doing
one
that
last one. I got
for
one last
sure.
one.
Yeah,
Don't listen to any of the big name players in 40K, especially the American ones. They don't respect orcs at all, and they never have. So
that's
I don't
true.
give a damn what any of those boys say. And
Yeah.
those are like my boys that I spend days and days with. They are haters, okay? Who cares what they say? Orcs are always 2 or 3 steps higher than those idiots give them credit for. So wah all day, baby.
Whoa, yeah. Let's just say I
Yeah,
second that without some,
yeah,
you
no,
know,
no.
adding to it.
They don't
Mhm.
respect orcs. So if you're
Yeah,
a good orc
for sure.
player, or if you're any orc player, get out there and wah.
That's
They need
actually
you. We
that
need you.
that's why we started doing the channel, man. I felt like nobody respected the
They
orcs,
don't. Go hurt
and
somebody.
here that's what
Go
we're
hurt
here doing.
somebody.
So Eric, you got any last words other than those awesome great last words? Maybe about yourself, your coaching service, where you're gonna be up to, where to
I
find
don't
you.
coach. I don't coach.
Oh, you don't coach. Okay,
Nope,
okay.
I don't coach. People do, and I think it's
Mhm,
super. When I first started playing, I
mhm,
hired coaches,
mhm.
and I found it very beneficial.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I don't do coaching. I mean, I
And
have, but like
uh-huh.
it's very rare. I'm not a
Yeah,
coaching dude, man. I got kids and shit. So,
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
if you want to get better, hire a coach. If you don't, or if you still do want to do it organically, go to events. Just play more 40K,
Yeah.
and the community is good. You will get better, and you will start smashing people as an orc. Every orc player I know has only gotten better. They are wildly powerful. So, and they got nothing but love for the orc community.
And we got love for you too, man. So with that being said, there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we'll knock
Yeah.
your teeth out. Whoa!
Ah!